Sorry, I'm just getting a little organized here. Okay, so we got the meeting minutes. I see nothing online or in the office. I'm just going to ask for a couple of comments in regard to staff verbal reports, which was item number 9. And I was just going to ask Chris if there was any updates on the statutory right-of-way thing that he was talking about last time in December, if you wouldn't mind.
Through the chair, no procedural updates at this time, but I do plan at the next Water Services Committee meeting to present an update to you. We are currently out securing statutory rights of way for the Phase 1 metering project in Erickson, so I can also provide boots on the ground experience from that as well.
All right, great, thanks, Chris. And then I'm going to just ask Uli, who had 2 verbal reports, if there's any updates or anything you'd like to add to the septic strategy and the provincial medical health officer meeting before we just carry on. And not to put you on the spot or anything, if there's nothing to add and nothing to say.
Do we have to tell the afternoon?
No.
No, this is, I think, just a verbal update from last meeting.
Yeah, the minutes.
Yeah, right. So it's rolling from the minutes, right? I just thought I'd mention it.
Yeah. So on the Creston Alternative Water Supply Study, it is nearing its.
I'll give that verbal update. The Creston Alternative Water Supply Study, I think I presented it in the summer to Water Services Committee, gave an overview of the project. At that time, we were still planning a public meeting. That public meeting occurred November 7th in Creston. It was pretty well attended. We had about 20 attendees from the agricultural community, of course, directors, members of the public, and also provincial representatives there as well. In that meeting, we presented potential routing options and infrastructure options to provide that alternative water supply, including location of a potential source intake on the Kootenay River. Feedback from that meeting has been incorporated, of course, into the study as we proceed. That public meeting happened a little later than we had originally planned. I think we had originally planned for it to take place in September. That happened early in November. As a result of that, and some staff changes, we made a request to the province, who's the primary grant authority on the project, for a 3-month extension, and we did receive that. So the new deadline is March 31st. We expect to receive a final draft report from Associated Engineering, who's the lead consultant on that study, near the end of February. Give us some time to review, and then, of course, present it to the next Water Services Committee as well. Certainly here to answer any questions on that.
Okay. Well, just as an update, and I'll just glance see if there's anything. Great. Okay. Well, we'll await the update in April then. Thanks. And Director Jackman.
Chair.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Director Jackman.
Yeah, I did put my name in chat. So I guess we moved from 5.3 to item 6. So I did add item 6. I think we need to clarify, perhaps as a board, but my understanding is that it would be appropriate and welcomed to see written briefing notes with just a short overview of when staff meets with Lower Kootenay Band, Ktunaxa, or other Indigenous staff. In fact, I'd be interested if there is elected representatives in those conversations. The point of the briefing note is we need to find that mechanism to strengthen our relationship, board to council, and also I'd like to better understand the level of detail or the conversation surrounding any expectations that one partner or another might have. So maybe we've only talked about this in CSLAC, but I would like to have, for all staff engagement, because we are still trying to build these relationships, a written briefing note. Tell us who met when and what the topic of discussion was. I don't know if any of my colleagues would support that concept. I don't need to have it as a motion necessarily now, but I think it's important that we have more than just kind of the broad, we met, the public talked, and now we're going to have something draft final.
Just writing this down, so the pause is mine. Director Jackman, would that be direction to the CAO, do you think, or what do you think?
Yeah, and two things. I see that I'd accidentally made a direct message instead of message to everyone when I put my name in, so you did not miss seeing my name for wishing to speak necessarily. I think, yeah, maybe it'd be a board discussion with Stuart that we're not going to build a relationship board to council or board to nation council if we don't understand what's being talked about as it's being talked about, because there's always assumptions made on one side or the other as to what the conversation is going to lead to. And I won't go into examples, but there's a few in my head. So I want to understand the level of topics, level of interaction and topics. And if it's Stuart that needs to talk to all senior staff about that, that's his job. So probably your approach should be the best.
Yeah, I'm just pondering for a second. We'll get to you, Director Van. Thank you. Just pondering that for a second. I'm meeting with Stuart just with my director's meeting later this week. I could raise that in that way, or we could have a formal question. What do you think? I'm turning it back to you, Director Jackman, because you've raised it, and I wonder how you want to best envision moving this idea
I have
forward.
a response.
Oh, Chair, of course. Go ahead, Director Watson.
So I think we have executive after this, and Director Jackman, of course, sits on that, and I will be raising it again. This has actually been a repeated request, not just in this service, but in several others. So I think we take it to executive, Director Jackman. I think Director Newell, as the chair of the Water Services Committee, it's good to reiterate it to Stuart as well, that you're hearing this as well. And if we need to put a motion in place, we'll put a motion in place. I'm feeling a bit of overwhelm over the amount that we repeat ourselves, which is not directed at anyone specific, but if motions are the only thing that are going to track what we direct, then we'll have to get into doing more motions. But that's where I'd suggest this goes. We'll take it to executive after this meeting. And what I wanted to respond to in terms of this particular project, yes, to what Director Jackman said, especially when we have engagement with First Nations, we need to see some memos on what that was, who was involved, what we may have committed to or may not have. And second, as chair of the board, I have been asked to be involved in those discussions. So please do include me. I did not know about any of those meetings. And I know it's easy to miss that, but the directors are asking me to be more engaged in these bigger projects, especially with First Nations. So please do include me in meetings. Thank you.
All right, so Uli's going to make a comment. We haven't forgotten of you, Director Van.
I would like to clarify a few things. So first of all, Chris, we didn't have specific First Nations staff, meetings with First Nations staff since what, late summer of 2024?
Yes.
So this is when this was discussed. So there was no meeting afterwards. We got direction. I totally acknowledge that, to provide briefing notes, but we did not have any formal meetings. I had a couple of informal discussions with a Lower Kootenay Band staff, which was specific to setting up a meeting with their council, so far to no avail. So that's the only contacts we had with the Lower Kootenay Band in regards to this project.
Thank you. All right, so executive can deal with the CAO on that. Thank you very much for the update. And I'm very glad I decided to have the minutes expanded upon or whatever in regard to verbal reports. Director Vandenberg, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you through the chair. So I will just back up a little bit and say that I do support Director Jackman in this, and I am happy to hear that our chair would be expediting this request. I'm hoping that it just becomes a normal part of our day-to-day in all our committees, because that type of information is critically important. But my specific question was back to Chris, and you had mentioned Associated would be presenting the report at the end of February. Prior to that, you had mentioned a March 31st period, but I didn't catch what was happening on March 31st, if you would be so kind.
Through the chair, March 31st is the funding deadline with IAF.
Thank you.
That's the day that they expect the project to be complete, and I believe the submission of the final report is by April 7th, and then payment I believe a week later upon receipt and acceptance of that report and the review of the project delivery.
Okay, we're good. All right, thanks very much. And the final minutes thing I wanted to touch on was Alex and the staffing adjustment and the new year's begun. Just any update on that you'd like to offer us?
Certainly through the chair, the position is currently posted until the end of this week. We've received some applicants and we'll be conducting interviews likely next week.
Awesome. Yes, go ahead.
We got a third item, I believe,
The septic, yeah.
strategy. So I think on the actual actions regarding the septic strategy, I report out in Joint Resource Recovery, where it still has its home, but otherwise Chris has transitioned to be part of some of the initiatives, namely the liquid waste management plan for the city of Castlegar and city of Nelson. I don't know if you have been on a meeting of that.
I've not been on the meeting with the city of Nelson,
But that's slowly happening, that Chris is CC'd on the correspondence relating to septic materials, and the details of what we are doing on septic I will report out at Joint.
Thank you. Okay, so that's the minutes from December. Thanks for that re-summary of that, if there's such a word.
Yeah. Director Vandenberg.
Vandenberg, please go ahead, Director.
Oh, thank you, but no, I'm fine. I didn't know where we were.
Okay, no, we're
still going over the business of the minutes.
we're 5.3.
Thank you.
We touched on 6. So we're So anyway, with the minutes, they will go to the board or whatever the board does with them. So moving on to item number 6, anything you'd like to add, Chris?
so I don't think
It's alternate water supply study.
nothing more than the extension on the funding, on the grant funding, and the modified delivery dates for the final report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. Okay, anything else? We're good. All right, moving on to item number 7, provincial meeting pilot.
So Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Director Jackman.
So this is fully on item 6. So
Please go ahead.
these dates aren't going to work for us to understand what the final report is. And this project will probably land in the tens of millions of dollars if it happens at all. It's not a little thing to pull water out of a major river and pump it up, in my mind, with at least a balancing reservoir and upper reservoir. So the timing is, I hear, at the end of February, there'll be a draft report. We're not going to meet again until Water Services Board until April 2nd. So I don't know if April 2nd to April 7th, which I've heard, we're going to have any meaningful understanding of that draft report. I would want to see that consultant draft report brought to the March 6th Creston Valley Services Committee, with staff maybe in the room, so that at least the 4 directors that would be asked down the road to contribute to a major project would have more than a couple of days between the April 2nd meeting and the April 7th final cutoff to understand what's going on. In particular, to understand expectations of our partners. There's so many interactions here that need to be thought through. Is a water line going to cross Indian Reserve 1? Is pulling water out of the river, going to take 5 years, 10 years? What sort of planning horizons? There's so much to this that could be an extraordinarily important economic contributor and such a huge monetary commitment. So please give direction to staff, bring that draft report from Associated Engineering to the March 6th Creston Valley Services Committee, and maybe an invitation for any interested director to listen in. I know the board chair has been.
We've got a staff response, Director Jackman, so
Yeah.
please go ahead. Maybe two staff responses.
I do not expect this report to come forward with recommendations that make immediate financial commitments. I don't think we are at that level. I think it will lay out strategic next steps. Some of them likely will be looking for grant opportunities. But Chris,
Yeah, go ahead,
Maybe if I can,
please.
maybe
Yeah.
if I can add to this too. The grant funding program that we applied to, the IAF program that is funding this project, is the first stage of a 3-stage grant rollout for projects like this. That first stage, like we said, is intended to help with the conceptual design development of this work. And then the next funding opportunities are going to be gradual advances in design, preliminary design, and then a detailed design grant funding opportunity, again, in those 3 separate phases. So like we said, the intention now with this study is not to hit the ground running, but to flush out the feasibility of providing that alternative water source, high-level costs, infrastructure routing options, constraints and opportunities along those routes, and feedback from the community and potential users down the road, again, to feed into the next 2 stages of funding opportunity.
All right, so I think points well taken. That's
Supplemental, Chair.
No, I just wanted to note that Chris had written down attendance at the Creston Valley Services. So I just wanted to note that, and please supplemental for sure.
Okay, so Uli's completely right. I don't expect we'll see any financial commitments, but we will see expectations. Here's one example. 10 months ago, I was told that a group had an expectation set 12 years ago, and I was told with my colleagues in the room, some of them in this meeting.
Director Jackman,
So I need the expectation. Chair, are you ruling me out of order? I have.
No. I want you to stop talking for a second. Your audio is problematic. And so I wanted you to stop talking so that we could see if we could correct that.
is off video now.
Okay, could you give us a test vocal of audio right now?
Trying again.
That's a little better. Okay, go ahead, please. No, it's still a problem, but it's not as bad. So go ahead. It's just very staticky, Director Jackman. So please go ahead. And we've agreed with you that it's going to come to the Creston Valley thing, and that we're in agreement. So there's no question about that. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I've made a point, I said earlier, making every meeting in person that I could. This morning, there's no ferries. And driving around wouldn't work time-wise.
Yeah, I know.
Making
Yes.
that point. Now, expectations is what I'm looking for as early as possible. On the 6th of March, I want staff
Director
to be
Jackman.
Is it not working? I
No,
will.
it's not working. Why don't you, we'll pause for a few minutes. Why don't you disconnect and come back, okay? See if that helps. We'll pause.
Good Chair, should we try somebody else too, just to make sure that it's not an issue on our end?
Director, any director, please say hi.
hi.
Hello there. How are you doing? 25
Thank you.
bid now,
You
35,
sound-
35
yeah,
bid
that
on
sounds
40,
bad.
$40. How's that sound?
Please be quiet, Director Vandenberg.
I'll buy whatever you're selling here.
Yeah. You sounded okay, so we'll wait for Director Jackman.
And Vanderberg is next on the list.
Oh, okay. And we have acknowledged you, Director Vandenberg, of being next on the list
Because of your good audio.
because of your good audio.
Oh, there's Director Jackman again.
Okay, test Director Jackman, please.
Is audio better?
Much better, thank you. Please go ahead.
I'm done for now. You go ahead with the agenda.
Okay, so yes, you will get something on, at your next.
I will see you, through the chair, I'll see you in Preston on March.
You shall be seen in Preston, yeah. Go ahead, Director Vandenberg, please.
Right, I think maybe it's been answered in Uli's description. I thought maybe that it was not timely for us to talk about it on March 6th at Valley Services, but it sounds like it is going to be. That report will be available to us then. So I just wanted to clarify that. It's all good.
Yes, yes.
Okay, we're good. Awesome. Onward with that massive project. Agenda item number 7 is entitled Provincial Metering Pilot Project, and Alex will walk us through that. Please go ahead, Alex.
Thank you through the chair. This report is for information only and is to outline the, essentially the application that staff made for the provincial water metering pilot project. This pilot project, through the Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs, is offering, 50 million in initiative for piloting, metering in the province of BC. Each area could receive up to $5 million for piloting meters within preferably single-family residential properties. You can see on the second page of the report the criteria for eligibility. Staff presented a part of the application was a requirement for a letter for commitment to the principal from the CAO, the RDCK CAO, that is attached as well to the report that you can see along with the application. Staff has elected water systems that could potentially benefit from this metering pilot project. And that is Erickson, the phase 2 residential portion of where we're currently in phase 1 of metering ICI, so industrial, commercial, institutional plus agricultural lands with 5 or more irrigation privilege. And so the remaining phase 2, which would be, some agricultural on the smaller side, and then of course all the residential. So staff has elected that as a potential candidate for this pilot project along with Woodland Heights. The outcome of the applications, so the successful proponents will be announced any day now. They said mid-February. And we would be expected to enter into a contribution agreement with the ministry by March 31st. Of course, we'll bring this again to the board if we are the successful proponents for this project. Is there any questions?
Maybe before we go to the directors, if I can add to.
Yeah.
So the reason why you didn't see this before we made the application was a late notification to us and very tight timelines to submit it. So we didn't have any appropriate meeting with the directors between deadline of application and receiving notice about that grant. So that's the reason why we decided as staff to go ahead with the application prior to seeking direction from the directors.
Thank you. All right, we'll ask questions, and we've got Director Cunningham. Go ahead, Director Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair, I have 2 questions. How many, I noticed that it says they refer communities over 3,000 users. How many
Under.
do we
No,
have?
under 3,000.
Under 5,000,
Pardon?
under 3,000.
Oh,
Under 3,000, yeah.
And what was over the minimum?
There was a minimum 300.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the correction. Okay, how many do we have that fall in that category?
So through the chair, the application does allow you to combine. So it's an application with a combined amount. For the Erickson residential, that was 500 some connections, 500 and change. And for the Woodland Heights, I believe it was 26. So we met that criteria, that minimum 300.
Okay, I understand, thank you. And my last question is.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and I assume those communities have been informed or directly responsible for the, are aware of the application.
So through the chair, this as Uli described, it was a very tight timeline. We had limited amount of time to bring this to the directors in a previous meeting. So the application has been submitted. Should we be successful proponents in this, then we would move ahead with informing the directors and the community.
But it was discussed at the advisory committee meeting level post application.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
Under 300.
a couple of questions. One is, would there be any cost to the homeowner if this project were to go forward?
So through the chair, this is up to 100% funding.
Okay, so
That's what we applied for.
That's what we applied for, yeah.
So it is the staff time investment to write the grant and a small component to manage the project if we are successful with the grant, but otherwise there's no other anticipated cost.
Right. And to help with my confusion, didn't we talk about different types of metering, one being in-house and one being at the property line, and we always do property lines? Is there a conflict with this project, with that?
Yeah, so through the chair, good point, Director Newell. At the 11th hour, the province discovered that it's actually quite costly to install meters and pits at property boundaries. So preference is given to cut in, what we call cut in, which is residential installation in the house. However, our bylaws do not permit that. So we proceeded with the application with the costing of meters in pits at property boundary.
Maybe to briefly explain why we ended up writing this with approval from the directors into the bylaw. When we did the Belfer metering system as well under a grant program, we did a mixed development between curbside metering and in-house metering. And we had painfully to find out that we missed a lot of water consumption by metering in the house. So the big peak consumptions are typically outside watering, and that's missed when you have the metering in the house. Either through yard hydrants or through leakage of very old service lines from the main line to the house. And so it defeated the purpose of metering, in our opinion, and that's why we ended up asking, and the directors agreed to write in our policy that if we do metering, that it would be at the curb.
Thank you for that clarification. So onward with that, nice work. Good letter from Stuart. Glancing up, I see no hands up, so we can, I believe, move on to the
Director
next.
Vandenberg, sorry.
Why? Oh, that hand. Go ahead, Director Vandenberg. I was looking for the yellow icon. Go ahead, please.
Thank you through the chair. And if you prefer, I will use the yellow icon as
It
opposed to
doesn't matter. We
whatever
can
your
handle
preference
anything
is.
here.
So my only questions would be in regards to this pilot and successfully being able to carry forward. Will this be voluntary to the residents? Will they have the ability to choose to have or not have the meter?
Go ahead, staff.
The metering itself, no, that would be, if it is implemented system-wide. The bigger discussion is what we do with the metering data afterwards. We recommend that we initially use it as a tool for confirming leakage and confirming excessive consumption. For us, this was one of these tools where we found out about the odd fountain that was fed from municipal water as a flow-through feature in the yard and things like that. So that is for us the main and dominant reason. The secondary one is to understand consumption in these systems. We have found out, for example, in Grandview through metering that we had a single customer that consumed about half of the total peak consumption on a single residential property. Unintended, but that's how we found out about it. We would have never known. So that's for us the main intention. If the directors and the community, meaning in form of an advisory committee, feel that we should go beyond that, we would do a 1-year data gathering and then provide mock bills. And, we'll come up with a rate strategy. We would use the data and say, if we would have applied these rates, this would have been your charge at your current consumption. So that would be the next steps if community and director feel that's where we want to go with this. But the initial and main intent is understanding consumption, and this is specific to these two water systems. That's why they were chosen. They both are struggling with supply. In Woodland Heights, we have a relatively weak aquifer that we are nip and tuck in regards to supply in periods with longer dry conditions. And in Erickson, we all know we have a challenge. We have a moratorium on additional agricultural use. We have had to say no on other applicants that would have liked to join the system. So here is a driver, and we are hoping that we see similar results as we saw in Balfour in regards to reducing consumption by finding these unintended leakages.
Thank you. Supplemental, other question, anything else?
Yes, thank you to the chair, and thank you for that explanation. I would expect that this would go evolve to billing for sure, be my guess. The other question I have is to do with the attachment on page 7 under funding, which takes you back to section 3.1. And in there it reads, subject to First Nations and archaeological assessments. And so my question around archaeological assessments is what triggers that? I just see it as being a delay, potentially a delay.
We've got a response. Director Vandenberg, please go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, so through the chair, these meters and pits would be installed primarily in road right-of-way on property boundaries. So that would be the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure road right-of-way. So I don't believe it would trigger any of that. This project wouldn't trigger any archaeological.
But we do have lines going through private property, and there could be the situation where we have to do certain precautions. I'm not sure about that. We will have to look into it. On road right-of-ways, the road right-of-ways are generally considered as already disturbed areas where we do not have any requirements for further assessment of the land.
Supplemental or additional, Director Vandenberg? I saw the thumbs up. Very nice. All right. Well, let's see where we're at here. I guess that covers the metering project. So we'll move on to water operations and capital project update. Alex, please take it away.
Certainly. So the intent of this report is to provide an update to the committee and highlight the larger maintenance items and capital projects that have been completed to date. I'm not going to go through these line by line. I will address, since we do have a member of the South Slocan water system here, I will quickly speak to the South Slocan capital project that is planned. Just for your information, the scope of the project has been reduced. So more information will be provided to the CAC once we firm that up. Director Popoff has been very generous to contribute community works funding to the project. That will likely cover the bulk of the costs for the reduced scope. Is there any questions on the operation maintenance and capital project update report?
Yeah, we have Director Popoff. Please go ahead, Director.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I'm just dealing with the report, not the capital plan that's going to be discussed further. It is under South Slocan operations and maintenance. One customer connection required a temporary shut-off. Needs to have the service valve replaced scheduled. So was two questions on that. Was that shut-off valve on public right away? And is the water system responsible for the cost, or was it on private property and the owner is responsible for the cost? And has that work been done?
Through the chair, yes, it was on private property, and that's private. Any valving or any infrastructure on the private side would be the responsibility of the property owner, and the work has been completed. Correct.
Sorry, I put a caution on this. There's situations where a valve can be on private property, but is considered our main line on private property, in which case we would pay for that valve. But generally speaking, you're correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So supplemental.
Yes, go ahead, Director Popoff.
Is, did the customer pay for that valve replacement?
Alex?
I would, through the chair, sorry, I have to follow up with Jay Collier, our water operations supervisor, to get the details of that, but I can provide that to you.
Okay.
I would imagine these reports are done in consultation with our water operations supervisors, so I have to get the details.
Okay, so, yeah.
You can email too if you
Yeah,
want.
is it the customer that pays for it or is it the water system? That's the only clarification I need through the chair, and I would appreciate a response and an email response or something to that effect.
Certainly, yes, and through the chair, if the customer requests a shut off, they do pay for that time for the operator to come in and out to turn on and off the water. And again, if the infrastructure is on the private side, they would be covering the costs of that. And with the exception, like Lee said, if it's our mainline infrastructure, then we would be responsible for that. But in this situation, this would be a private side issue.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay, so is there anything else you want to say, Alex?
Happy to answer any more.
Okay, so we're open for questions, and I'm looking for waving hands and the aforementioned yellow icon hand. I'm
Have
not
Jackman
checking.
and Watson in the chat.
Oh, and we've got chat, and Director Popoff's let me down because he was asking a question. But, okay, who's first, Director Popoff?
I'm just trying to log
Okay.
back in, so.
Director Watson, please go ahead.
Sorry, chat has us by time. Jackman, then Watson.
Okay, Director Jackman, go ahead, please.
But only Sarah. I'll dump my video again.
Yeah,
Good to see some of the
you're fine.
gen sets are going in. The gen sets are cheaper than the worst case scenario was going to be. Question applies to many of us. What is the maintenance or the warranty period for these new propane backup generators? First question.
Through the chair, I believe it's 10 years, but I'd have to double check on that and I can get that information to you.
Wow, that is all. But there must be probably a shorter warranty period on some. What I was looking for is somebody, especially in these cooler days, going to sites, cutting off the main breaker, and just making sure they start up quickly. We had a brief conversation about this in one of the other meetings advisories. just to make sure the batteries are up to snuff. There's no issues with connections. I see in Riandel there's corrosion issues, which goes back a decade. But is somebody testing these in the cooler days while they're fresh and new to make sure it'll be easy to bring back the contractor if there are any problems on startup?
Yeah, through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, we do a monthly test for the automatic transfer switch to ensure that they do switch over smoothly with no issue. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Director Watson.
Yeah, two questions. First one is really appreciate. I just want to acknowledge staff. We've been working on hydrants for Woodbury, and with our conference at the EA last week, between staff and I, we got conflicting information. So hopefully those hydrants can be covered by Community Works. I'm just curious if staff had an update, and then I had a follow-up question because I don't want those removed quite yet from the budget or from the plan.
Yeah, I provide for the rest of the directors a little bit of background. So we did inquire with UBCM staff about the eligibility of hydrants, got the information that hydrants are not an eligible expense under the Community Works program. Meanwhile, the director had a conversation with UBCM staff and discussed the eligibility under a different criterion. And that was under the resiliency aspect. And I don't know, Director Watson, if you want to expand on this a bit more. But the indication there was it may be eligible under that category. We do not have an update yet. I saw a couple of emails going back and forth for clarification, and we are waiting for a final decision on that.
Go ahead, Director Watson. Any update?
Yeah, thank you. No, it'd be staff it was a staff to staff conversation after that. So thank you for following up with UBCM. I look forward to hearing the response. I did provide an outline on how it does qualify under the resilience category, and that's where UBCM staff I spoke to seem to understand that. So hopefully the staff get back to you indicating that, oh, yes, that does work. So I'll wait for that response. My second question was regarding, we also talked at the CAC meeting about a generator. So I'm wondering if we can just note that in the capital plan to be addressed in 2026, or does that just stay in the notes? And when we talk about capital in 2026, we'll reassess.
Through the chair, we would likely put it in the capital plan for 2026. Yes, so we've made note, and that could be a potential capital project for 2026.
Sorry, for clarification from me through the chair, was that the generator readiness, meaning plug and play, or generator?
Through the chair, I think it was both. Like as far as I recall from the CAC meeting, community members wanted to have both the transfer switch and the ability to plug in a generator and potentially price out a generator to see how much that would cost.
If I can clarify.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So I believe the intention is that for the 2026 CAC meeting, we would have some information regarding options. And then those options would then lead to what is affordable and what is most feasible. There was a lot of questions about the different ways to do it, but not enough information to really say which way. So essentially, we had asked for options to be presented for consideration in 2026. I hope that helps clarify. Alex is correct. There was different ways it was being kind of bounced around, but without numbers, it was hard to make a direct suggestion.
Certainly, yes. And through the chair, Director Watson, that will be presented to the CAC, the next CAC meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. So we're just wondering if there's more questions, clarification, etc., prior to taking a break, prior to moving into our water. Oh no, we'll do the water quality report and then pause. So seeing none, we'll move on to item number 9. And that is water quality report. And I don't know if Natalie's on
I don't believe she
No,
is.
I don't.
Okay, so Alex will be handling this one. Please go ahead, Alex, if there's anything.
Certainly, this is, again, just a summary of any water advisories that were issued by staff for various water systems in the reporting period. Happy to answer any questions, if there are any.
We're looking for waving hands, yellow hands, chat. But Walter, checking chat. We've got it all covered. Okay, well, you can certainly approach Natalie if you do ultimately have any questions. So we'll take a 15-minute break before going into the next item. Thanks, everyone. Talk soon.
As will do. Hopefully, we'll get back on.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're starting, but I'll give a few seconds just to let people reconnect. I can't even remember what time I said we'd reconvene, so it could be a bit early. Well, 5 after, we're early a bit, so, but people are gradually coming back on stream. And we are going to move into agenda item number 10 once Alex updates us with a previous generator question. So, are you there? Director Jackman's there, so we'll answer the question. Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you through the chair. So for the generators that were installed in Ryanville, Lister, and Edgewood, the warranty period is a 5-year comprehensive warranty. So I was a little off there by about half. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Great. And you okay with that, Director Jackman? Nodding. Yep. Thumbs up. Great. Thanks, Alex. All right. We're moving into financial plans. I don't know which staff member's dealing with this. So Chris is. So onward.
Through the chair, certainly here to answer any questions that members have on the budgets as presented.
Okay, so what we'll do is we will now open the floor to questions. I have Director Popoff here, first in line. And so we'll do the budget. So go ahead, Director Popoff, and just which service you're referring to.
Thank you, Chair. I'm referring to the South Lacan water system. And when we had our community advisory meeting, at that time, I believe the distribution system upgrades was over $100,000 or in that neighborhood. Now we're down to $60,000. Can you please expand on it? What are we actually doing there for the benefit of the South Lacan water users?
Certainly, yes, through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So I just want to clarify, we haven't firmed up the actual cost of the project yet, but we have reduced the scope. The scope now includes replacing the valve farm. That was a part of the original scope, so we've replaced the 3 valve farm and then replace the line and extend it through the existing carrier pipe underneath the highway and then connect it to the water being on the south end of the highway. So it would be, I don't have the exact distance, I believe it's about 100 meters of pipe that would be replaced through a carrier pipe. And then again, the 3 gate valves on the valve farm.
Supplemental.
Okay, I don't know if I fully understand that without a diagram, but I think I've got the gist of it. On just the carrier pipe underneath the highway is what we're replacing, and is it along the dam end road or whereabouts it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so through the chair, so it is from the valve farm that's on the road entering into, like off the highway, entering into South Lacan, and then underneath the highway and then connecting to the line that currently supplies, the residences in the dam end on the south end of the highway.
So it's similar to what was presented at the CAC meeting, the map, in regards to that mainline piece. What's not part of it is the service lines going east. They are no longer part of the project, and I believe we found that one of the mainline sections was actually already replaced, so that shortened the distance of the project as well.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, supplemental. So
Yeah.
with the community works funds that I'm providing for that, staff will put forward an application, will have more of a firm cost on that. And if it's over than that, it'll be coming from the reserves then?
Just stop the line. No, no, yeah, we definitely inform the community and have a discussion, but we anticipate that the budget is sufficient for that stretch. The servicing through the existing carrier pipe should be relatively straightforward. The bigger cost is the valve cluster on the north side of the highway.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right, I'm growing, yes, Director Cunningham, please go ahead.
Can you please explain for us, we don't know very much what the carrier right was type of in, and another type of decided or other type of. I know what carrier cables are for EV or things like that, I don't know what carrier type.
Yes, certainly, through the chair. So when, in this particular situation, when the highway was redone, that overpass was redone, we coordinated with MOTI to install, I can't remember the exact size, but a sizable carrier pipe. So then we could essentially slide through a 6-inch water main without having to either directional drill or tear up the highway. So that carrier pipe was installed specifically for future projects that would replace the apartments.
How big would a carrier pipe, how big would a carrier pipe be, 12 or 15?
Yeah, we typically prefer about double the size of, the pipe.
And in fact, in your water system, you may have seen the installation of one across the highway at the time when they did the highway project. We installed a carrier pipe that is not being used yet, but it's ready to replace the existing.
Yeah, I recall that, yeah. And it's interesting the way that drilling is done under the highway is disturbing, that they put it in, they drill under the highway and then install the carrier pipe. Which is very interesting.
Thank you. Hey, I'm going to ask a question. Just checking the volume here. Director Cunningham was speaking from my distance kind of quietly. Could you hear him? Okay, so we do need a little more volume to come across, but we did get the gist of your question.
I am used to speaking loudly, but I had to work on, I had to speak a little bit more quiet.
Modulating, we call it. Well, I yell, but that's
called yelling.
beside the
But,
all right.
apologies.
No, not at all. I was just checking the sensitivity of little owl. Okay.
Other things to be installed in that carrier pipe, say, for example, fiber optic line, if that was ever desired.
Through the chair, I'm not sure. I will imagine you could put additional conduit through carrier pipe.
Yeah, I mean, through the chair, I've done it before in other areas.
Thank you, because I know there's fiber optic is going down, is a thing, so underground, most of it's underground, and I was just curious, but the people who are carrier pipes would be co-used. Thank you so much for the information.
You're welcome, and I'm welcoming them. So I don't see any more questions. Oh, yes, I do. Director Weatherhead. Thank
Sure, you have Graham, Jackman, Weatherhead, and Watson all in chat.
Oh, okay, my colleagues are letting me down a bit here, so it's okay. We're on it. So just a second, I'm going to open chat right now. Oh, I probably won't open. Okay, so Director Weatherhead. No, where are we? There we go. Director Graham. We're at 10:05. Okay, and we've done. No, Director. Oh yeah, okay. Director Graham, please go ahead.
Thank you. So through the chair, just one quick question on the Balfour budget, Uli, through the chair to Uli. I'm just trying to make sure I've got the increases correct. We're still, even like further to our conversations from yesterday, we're looking at the 5% parcel tax plus a 10% service charge increase. Is that correct?
Yeah,
We're looking it up.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Through the chair.
All right. Thank you. Director Jackson.
Sorry, maybe
Pause. Go ahead, Uli.
In regards to, because Director Graham was mentioning it, I had a meeting with Director Graham yesterday because the Grandview water system, we had a CAC, we presented a budget that did not have the final environmental services fee numbers in it. When we updated the environmental services fee, and by the way, that was for many systems the case, specifically to Grandview, there was a significant increase to their cost based on the calculations that we do, which would have triggered a much higher rate increase required than we had identified in the advisory committee meeting. I met with the director yesterday, proposed that we compensate that significant increase through a draw from reserves. So there will be an updated budget coming to the directors at the next budget meeting for that purpose. Director Graham agreed that that is an acceptable approach to her. Why that is as well acceptable is that we have a one-time larger increase to the environmental service fee that is anticipated to normalize next year again. And so it is acceptable to compensate that that 1 year increase through a reserve contribution. It has slightly higher effects on future increases, but they were discussed and are included in that budget that we present the next time around.
Great. And Director Graham is good with that. So we'll move on. Director Jackman, please go ahead.
Yep, thanks, Chair. I have 2 points, do them one at a time. Apparently some people are reading our amending bylaws month by month, which is a good thing. But the one that increases the cap for parcel tax by 25% has caused some confusion. At a recent meeting, I explained, like for Riendell, the proposed increases are 5% per year, year over year. For Sanket, 0. But there's an opportunity. Will staff be putting out some kind of insert or explanation with the billing this year as to what this 5-year increase is all about, so that more of them don't assume we're going to hit them with 25%? So that's the first question.
Okay, we'll
Yes, through the chair, that is the plan. When we do send out bills on an annual basis, we flag, of course, rate increases. We've got a threshold for which we flag that and explain the drivers there, and explain, of course, for the parcel tax as well, because it is unfamiliar to people. So just explaining what that parcel tax is for, how the increases work, and what the future looks like with those increases as well.
Brent, please go ahead.
And then the second one, these budgets, I liking them more and more every year. The 3-year averages, clear information on reserves and borrowing. And in particular now, I like to see you have the asset management plan identified contribution to reserve. I can't find three of the asset management plans I should have in my fingertips. So could you please send me the current or most up-to-date asset management plans for Sanka Water, Riendell Water, and Riendell Drainage, please?
Noted.
Yep.
Thank you. Is that a supplemental, Director Jackman? Okay.
Go ahead. Director Jackman, if I may, through the chair. The asset management plans, the spreadsheets itself, are extremely detailed, confusing, and on top of it, somewhat proprietary. If they would be definitely a tool that I have no problems to send to the director, but I don't think that is a good tool to go to the public with or commission with. I think we should do what we have done in the past, where we summarize the outcomes from our asset management plan. That will be a lot more visible, shorter, and easier to understand than a spreadsheet with 20 tabs and 50 cells wide. That would be my suggestion. If that's acceptable to the director, we have no problem sending you the spreadsheet, but I don't think it is a tool for public consumption.
Makes sense.
I would welcome both. I don't mind reading spreadsheets, and I will hold it to myself. But sure, a summary for public transparency would be good, because these are pretty big numbers that people don't understand, that a reservoir is expensive, a new treatment plant is expensive. So some form of summary would be fabulous.
Yeah, maybe through the chair, I'll just add to that.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
There are some visual tools and graphs that we can leverage that help summarize that kind of extensive spreadsheet information in the AMPs and show the shorter term, the 25-year and 100-year horizons for infrastructure replacement cycles, and when things should really hit the ground and be be replaced, or otherwise renewed or against. So,
And if I may add to that, so my hope is that we find time to actually provide these short summaries, and we did that a few years ago, provide these short summaries and visual demonstrations of our asset management plans on our new website. Right now, we pulled all the older information off. We are going somewhat with a minimum version into the new website version and hope to repopulate it with up-to-date information. And that, in my mind, would be good new information to have on that website.
Excellent. All right, thank you. Director Weatherhead, please go ahead.
Thank you. I wish I had actually gotten the Burton. I have a lot of questions about Burton. First of all, though, just two parts to this question is one that I did, establish a Burton committee, and they were very eager to be, able to see their budget prior to this, and that just didn't happen. So I can understand that time is restricted, but this is quite a hike. I'm just trying to understand the 25% increase for 2025, and then why is the 20% in 2026 highlighted? Is that just, did we highlight the wrong one, or and just trying to understand rate per household, because this is going to come as quite a shock to my Burton residents, and I was hoping to buffer that with the committee to have some understanding at least.
We are turning it over to staff.
yeah.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I'm just opening up my spreadsheet here.
Before Chris gets into the numbers, we are still owing your community in Burton both a CSE meeting, I believe there's a CSE now in place, and a public meeting. The rates in that systems are definitely at a point where we need to have public explanation to all residents there, even if 60-70% are still receiving their payments through BC Hydro. But I think we are definitely at a point where we need to explain in detail what the drivers are and what our limited options are to address these drivers.
Thank you. Supplemental then, if that's going to happen, I'm pleased with that to be the case. And again, whatever I can offset, I guess, with Community Works. But unfortunately, knowing that, a quite large majority of the rate holiday is then that my Community Works goes to kind of supplement BC Hydro, which is kind of a conundrum for me. But if there's a way to soften, I don't really know, or if we're just kind of stuck with this. So.
Chris?
Yeah, through the chair, just to maybe back up, you commented on that flagged cell. Those are internal notes in the budgets, and I'll tell you what that one was, though. The intended increase, or the projected increase, was even larger than what is presented now. So we were able to make that a 20% rather than higher. Again, the drivers for this system, the environmental services budget, like similar to other budgets, came in higher upon recalculation. It was about twice as high as we had envisioned. Yeah, and then of course the capital projects. We've got the 2-year distribution system upgrades identified in 2025 and 2026 that are drivers as well here.
So is it true there is going to be a community meeting?
Yes, that's true. There will be a community meeting. I think we've got membership now.
So it's
We'll commit to setting up a CSC meeting here within the next
Very short time, 2 weeks.
3 weeks. Yeah.
so is it possible that you and staff, Director Weatherhead, can have a conversation leading up to that to
Absolutely.
discuss the community works. It might be better offline to go into the nitty gritty, just as Director Graham did yesterday with Grandview.
Yes, thank you. That would work for me. And I did have one supplemental question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Just supplementally, it's just the way these budgets are laid out. I realize, and again, maybe I'll just take this offline too, because I'm just trying to read where the numbers for rate holiday show the same numbers, but there's no figures beside rate holidays. So I'm just confused by that, but I can certainly have somebody help me read this better on offline.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's probably a better way to get your total understanding.
Thank you.
Great. We'll move forward with Director Watson. Please go ahead.
Hi there. I'm just wondering if I can get a copy of the Woodbury budget post CAC meeting. It's not in the attachments.
Chris is nodding.
Yeah. Is that it?
It's on its way. Checks in the mail.
Okay, and supplemental to that, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I realize that I have asked to not remove the hydrants until we get that response from UBCM. So if you want to wait for that, I would understand. I think that's the one item we're still waiting to clarify.
Yeah, through the chair, you're correct there.
Another nod.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. All right, so that's Director Popoff's kept me up to date on the speakers list via chat. I'm scrolling the screen. Director Cunningham has given me the clean bill of health to go ahead. Okay, so I think that does it for item number 10. Of course, anything that pops up, you can certainly go to staff offline. We'll move on to advisory committees and the summary of the discussion notes from the various committee meetings. And that's for your information. If there were a question, you could direct it now to staff. Or a wonder. Or an observation. Okay, now I'm seeing some hands. Now we're talking. Okay, I'll go. I saw Director Jackman first and Director Weatherhead. Director Jackman, please go ahead.
Sure, thanks. And hopefully the audio holds.
It's good.
Something missed from our advisory. I just have to tell you here now. Mark Easton just told me the Riandel Golf Course and Atlanta Lease Limited have both received their water licenses. So that's for Uli, Chris, and Alex. You did something right. Because how many years we've been waiting on that? Thank you, guys. It's hot off the press.
A good news story. So we've got a rah-rah happening here in the boardroom. A very energetic one. Anything you'd like to add, Director Jackman, besides the good news story?
Was one more, Sanka, let's cross our fingers. These have been years in the making, getting these water licenses. Have a huge impact on our water system capacity and future design, reservoir size. So couldn't hold that back. I thought I'd just say it now. Please go.
No, thanks, staff, for noting. Chris is going to comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, I do understand that Angela Lund sent off the package to the inspector of municipalities. So we do hope to hear back on, a thumbs up on that redrawing of the service boundaries and a way forward for us there. So,
good, Angela. Yeah. Great. All right. Thanks, Director Jackman. Director Weatherhead.
Thank you, through the chair. I just want to commend staff on a really wonderful CAC meeting and my Edgewood rock stars, I call them, because they have 6 members that are and so engaged. But there was one item missing. I just noticed on the minutes was just that we did have the discussion about water hydrants there as well. So I'd be very keen to learn about community works possibilities, because I know in that meeting it had been determined we couldn't use community works. So I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
There's nods. Energetic, I might add. Nods. We're pausing just to see if anyone else has comments, observations, questions. Okay. All right. So moving along, we are now at public time. And so I will ask if there's anyone in the public. There's no one person here in the room who's acknowledged his presence, but doesn't, I don't think, have a question.
I do.
Oh, go ahead, please. Identify yourself and, we're speaking into these mics to try and get it, so you can have a seat even if you want. We like host with the most.
Down very long anyway.
Yeah, please go ahead, introduce yourself.
Okay, well, I'm Peter Wood. I'm a past chairman of the Salford Down Waters District area, and I'm just representing us today.
Can I just check, is our volume okay? Could you hear Peter? Peter, I'm going to ask, it's just a little tricky, so a little projection.
I'll do my best. As Hans mentioned, he's a former teacher, so am I, but it's a good job I'm not teaching these days.
Yes, I hear you. One voice lost our voices teaching, yelling at those kids. No, we never yelled.
What do I say? What it used to be.
Go ahead.
The long and short, my question is, I've got two actually, but the first one, let's talk about that. Have staff considered applying or seeking blanket easements for the water lines in our village, which are not in the rights of way that exist? There are reasons that the lines are on the private land. It's very historical, but the highway, the village road used to be the highway. And that's why the lines are not there. But to move them into the village road right away would be, especially since they're functioning, as far as I'm concerned, adequately, perfectly well. But anyway, the long and short is, has there been any investigation in the last 20 years about blanket easements for water lines on private property?
Can we just pause and just see if the staff have something on that, and then we can carry on while it's in a nice circle.
So that was a general question, and as general, yes, we have. In fact, we are just in the approval stage for a waterline replacement in Erickson, where we have some of the line continue to be on private property because of how the highway and the pavement is off-centered and things like that. So yes, generally we look at that. We have in Lister, we had one or two projects actually where we did line replacement, where we obtained that statutory right-of-way for the lines. So generally we do. Specific to your area, to your water system, South Slocan, we have not yet. But I'm certainly interested in hearing what you, as knowing the community and your CAC, think about the feasibility of that. It is a lot easier when you have an agricultural property or a very large property to obtain an easement along the edge of the property than it is for smaller residential properties. But we would be certainly interested in looking at options for that, knowing that rock and rock outcrops are a problem in your area, and you have an extremely narrow road right-of-way through your community. So yeah, definitely something we would be interested to look at.
Thank you. I really urge that we do look into that. The community has changed from 20 odd years ago. There's a lot of different folks there. And with the cost of our water, now I'm paying $2,000 for each of two properties for my water alone. And we're still talking about increases. I can't see the community resisting any way to reduce the extra costs of relocating functioning lines into rights of way. When a blanket easement might be a simple solution, all we would expect, I would think, would be that the contractors who might be doing the work would be respectful as possible of what's already on the land involved.
I was speaking through the chair in general terms. There's the two options. The one is an actual surveyed statutory right of way,
Yeah,
but the survey is relatively expensive. The blanket easement, we do have residents being apprehensive in regards to providing a blanket easement over their whole property, even if that's blanket easement with map attached. People are somewhat hesitant to say, yeah, you have all rights on my property, right? So that has certainly to do with trust in regards to what we are doing on their property. But it is certainly something we are willing to investigate.
I can understand, if I may speak, Chair, I can understand why the surveyed easements, they're going to be very expensive. So blanket easements with the associated trust of the contractors and the regional district in doing any work that might be needed under such a blanket easement. I think we just need to work on building.
Peter, what I'm going to do is, because it's a yes, and your points raised, and there is, a community group, I think that it's something that can, begin the process through the committee and through your director and what have you as a really good idea, if possible.
Okay.
I'll go to your second question and then see where we're at. Okay.
Okay, the second question concerns the project for this upcoming season. The original map that we had showed a disconnection of the fire hydrant up on the bluff above the highway. Is that still included to disconnect that fire hydrant to remove it off the property or whatever?
Through the chair, no, that's not currently part of the scope.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, what we have to revisit, given the information that we found, a section of the water main to the south of the highway has already been replaced. We really are just focusing on that valve farm north of the highway and then just through the carrier pipe. So that's the extent of the scope for this year's project.
And it's fully community works funded. As we discussed in the meeting on 2 occasions, the eligibility we still need to clarify for community works for hydrants anyhow. So that would be the other if we go to replace a hydrant through a community works funded project.
Right. So there'll be more information as the project moves forward, and as I said, with your community group committee, you can work with staff to begin to prioritize longer areas for sure, which is, probably a good idea on the long-term management of the system, because we've had reports from Chris on rights of way, and it's a big issue, and it's one staff is working on many of our systems. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're good.
Thank you, Chair. As a general question, if I may do the Chair. When you have a blanket easement like this, and there's a water line going through somebody's property, and of course I assume that they're attacked, and it's down to the water line, normally at the property line is where we decide, okay, this belongs to the owner to repair, and this belongs to the district to repair. What happens if they've got a blanket easement? How far back do we go off the actual line before it's their problem instead of ours? Do we have an answer or something?
Sure, no, inside the easement, it's their problem, but we can get access to it. That's all it's allowing.
I think the question is, and it's an interesting one. So normally the curb stop to a property is on property line and is owned by the regional district. If we now have an easement, force the main line onto private property and take a service line and a curb stop and have the curb stop now on private property, the person that provides us an easement should not be penalized by saying this is now your cost because it's on private property. We, I think, clearly would, and we need to see if there's changes to the bylaws required in that, but it's an interesting question. We would not want to penalize somebody who provided us an easement to make a more affordable project. So thank you for raising that question.
Thank you. Yes, I was curious how this kind of thing would work.
Great. Yeah, no, yeah. So the curb stop's still ours. Okay, Thank you, Peter. Welcome. And before I ask for a motion to adjourn, are there any closing comments from our directors, staff, anything like that? Well, seeing none, I'll accept we have a motion to adjourn, moved and seconded in the boardroom here. Just a sec.
We have online private individuals. Did we ask that?
Oh, yeah, I'm certainly not cutting off the conversation of questions, but no one's unmuted online. So I assume that Rob does not have a question, or Kathy. So seeing that, we have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? We are adjourned at 10:40. Thanks very much, everyone. Stay warm. Looks like it's starting to warm a little bit. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, thank you. It's going from -24 to -22.
Yeah. And are we offline yet?
Not yet.
At most. Anyway, thanks, everyone. Hey, did you reach out and slow